outside the limitations of realism, where we test the boundaries of imagination and are forced to think outside the confines and restrictions of what is normal. We are the creators, the writers, the artists, and the insane. Welcome to our weird realities.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weird Awakenings. We are so glad you could be with us tonight. Tonight, we've got Tully and Cecil with us, as always, and our special guest, Miss Kaitlin Crawford. From
Hey.
It's so great to have you here. And what we're going to be kind of delving into tonight is the subject of skinwalkers. There are a lot of different legends and myths about skinwalkers, but, what are they really? Some people say that, they are people that have learned to take on the form of an animal and that they can transform into any animal they want, but that they're evil. And others claim that they are people who have been given special powers by the gods and that they can use the powers to help each other. Which legends are true? Well, that's kind of what we're going to get into tonight. So what do you guys think?
Well, I'd like to address before we came on, you was advising me that I was either a skinwalker or a wereline.
A wereline, that's right.
So that's pretty cool.
Yes, I think if you were a skinwalker, we'd have figured it out by now. Somebody would have.
Oh yeah.
I don't think you could hide it, Cecil.
I was watching a video that Tully sent me, I think, of a skinwalker, and it was a dog that like slammed the bathroom door. So every night when I get up and I see my dog standing at me, like just staring at me, I get kind of creeped out.
Yeah, I do remember that video. This girl had adopted a dog or brought in a stray, and she's recording because she's hearing like crashing and stuff, and she turns the corner and the dog's head is like 5 feet up on the wall and the door slams and abruptly the video stops. So
creepy.
Yeah.
Very creepy.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that back years ago, I really got into researching and everything, and then kind of, got away from it more until here recently, because it seems like you're hearing a little bit more about it lately. I think with social media, a lot of things that, I looked at years ago are starting to become more popular as more people, share their information.
Yeah, I think a lot of the deep topics that we used to, our community used to just like, it used to be super high level stuff. Some of it's becoming more vanilla, like to the mainstream thought and narrative, I think. But
and the more they try to suppress everything, the more it comes to light. So suck it.
But I did want to just jump in and allow Kaitlin to kind of give some background. I don't think our audience has met her before, so
that would be awesome.
If you want to introduce yourself, Kaitlin, and give some background before we start jumping in.
Okay. Well, my name is Kaitlin Crawford, and I'm 6th generation Native American spiritual practitioner and medium. So I'm ready to be here to speak on the topic of skinwalkers, because I am Native American and I do have some background knowledge of it, but it's very limited, but for a good reason, which I'm sure you guys probably have all heard. It's pretty taboo to speak of in general, but especially about Native communities, because it's not something of urban legend in, Native communities. It's something that's so strongly believed that myself, even now as a practitioner myself, is something that I'm not nervous to speak about.
And you regularly investigate the unknown, right? Like paranormal.
Yeah, and communicate with spirit and do cleansings and things for people who have attachments. But it's a real, I don't want to say, well, I guess calculated risk you take, because these things are very real and have power of their own, I guess, for lack of better.
When I was doing research, it seems like each kind of faction of Native Americans kind of have their own version of this. Like Skinwalker seems like it's mostly isolated to the Navajo Nation. but they were very similar, acting like legends and lore as I kind of scouted around, the United States. Hey, Landa.
And hey, Carrie.
It seems like are the comments little to you guys today?
They've changed something up, and I'm not 100% sure.
It's not about the size, Tully. It's about the quality.
Well, I'm sure you can read it since you have the zero eyesight.
Yeah, I've not got my eyes in right now.
Right. And I can even remember, when I was younger, that, like, say, the taboo behind it, and the fact that even when I had people talk about it, they were very cautious. It was not this, oh, well, let me tell you, I know all, it was never anything like that. So, that to me kind of usually happens when there's more credibility to something, when there's something that's more believable, more realistic.
Well, I think it all changed when Discovery Channel picked it up.
Yeah.
Like there was always, like, I think when Skinwalker Ranch really started getting on the scene, I don't know who Facebook user is, but hello.
We had this last night or last week when we were on Watching Weird. People were not showing up as themselves; they were just showing up as Facebook users. So
They're bots.
Bots.
Is that what it is? It's the bots. Okay.
But yeah, I think once the narrative came out on Skinwalker Ranch, I think that threw Skinwalkers into the mainstream.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I know that there's a documentary on that on Netflix or Hulu or one of them. I have not watched it because I'm skeptical of watching it.
As far as the ranch goes, like
Mhm.
even before Discovery, I had done like extensive research just because the government was involved.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's less like Native American lore and more conspiratorial.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I guess the only thing that's reminiscent of the traditional stories is the folks who originally owned that ranch. The black dog situation, to where it was a wolf that was probably 6 times the size of a wolf, and it was trying to kill one of their cows, I believe, and they shot it an innumerable amount of times, and it wasn't phased at all. And by the time they could track it down, it was gone.
Yeah. Before we can get going into it even further, Kaitlin, could you tell us like the origins of it?
I can't speak for anybody but myself. Like you said, it's very. I don't even want to make the connection. See, this is like how palpable this energy is here. But like you said, Navajo culture, they are the major ones that I'm familiar with having instances of skinwalkers, prevalence of skinwalkers. But beyond that, I don't know anything but experiences that I've had evading, I guess, them in a spiritual way when I travel through Navajo territory, Arizona. If I'm just on the road, there's certain protections I put in place because I heed those warnings so greatly. And just the warnings that people in my community or my family told us, you don't talk about it. If you see something, you didn't see anything, right?
That's how it, it's funny you say that, because in Appalachian culture where we grew up, very similar. It was always, if you heard whistling in the forest, you didn't hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like someone calling out to you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think, I think our area is part of the Cherokee Nation, or like the greater Cherokee area. But I don't think that they really had a name for it. I think it was all just kind of an unspoken thing of the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's from just what I've researched even about that area in the past, they are a very close-knit, quiet, private, community. So, what are the odds that they would talk to outsiders, about something like that.
Yeah. And I
Which
think
Go
I
ahead.
think a big part of that isn't like in other forms of Native culture or spirituality, they keep things close because they want to retain the knowledge, right? When it comes to skinwalkers, the feeling I've always got from it was more out of not wanting to be on the radar of a skinwalker, more so than not wanting to share. It's that I don't even want to speak those words because then I'm on their radar, right? More so.
That makes perfect sense to me.
So it's kind of like speaking it into existence.
It's like recognizes like, kind of. So as a practitioner, other practitioners recognize that. It's like an energy, right? Whether you're purposefully tapping into them or trying to see if they're a practitioner as well. Say I'm traveling through Navajo country, just traveling through to get to New Mexico or wherever. I might run into somebody along the way that's a skinwalker that I'm not aware of. But they recognize me for what I am too. But if they recognize that I recognize them for what they truly are, I'm a threat for knowing that. Right? So it's the same way if you speak about them, if you do have a connection, whether you practice it or not, if you're just open to those things, you're an open target as well. Either for them to flex on you, which I heard is like the major way that they keep people afraid, right?
Well, yeah, I'm sure.
Showing you a little bit of what they got so that you don't want to, I don't want any part of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Type of thing.
Right.
So when you guys were researching, I don't know about you, but I came across a bunch of different ways that one could potentially become a skinwalker or whatever you want to call it. Like at this point, it has so many names. But I read everything from like just magical items, like items of power, to sacrificing someone that you care about and potentially consuming that person. So what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are truly who knows. There's many practices out there around the world, so none of that would really surprise me. And I can't speak to what the traditional teachings are about that because I'm not part of that tribe. But
Well, you know that they can't like teach that. You know what I mean? Surely they wouldn't be teaching people or like giving them the means by which to become that. Like I'm wondering, like just like you said, if you were to just stumble upon one, like maybe they intermittently create more of themselves, like give someone the means by which to do it.
Well, I mean, like it would be like anything else, like any kind of cultural thing amongst a family too. They could pass it down like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. She said that she likens it to people who are prone to possession. Like I feel like you would have to be like a Darth Vader figure to become a skinwalker for sure.
Nadalushi. Is that
Well,
Togoloshi.
well, and who's
skinwalkers like Nadalushi or
Oh, yeah, got you.
yeah, but and who's to say too, what kind of lost documentation, lost with quotes is out there that people have passed around, and even the worst person has a group of fans. I mean, so who's to say that that's not how some of it happens? Is I see this power in you and I want a part of that, and not realizing the full ramifications of it.
That's a really good point, Morgana, because if you think about, like, we all know about the dark arts and stuff that goes on in Hollywood and like the elite circles and stuff, like the kind of magic and deities that they worship, like that's all very underground and you have to be invited in. Like you can't, like I couldn't just go into the other room and do what they do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I agree with all of you. Like Cecil said, it could be something that's just passed down, the knowledge family to family. Like my mediumship and my practitioner, that's been passed down. We have the connection, but there's also things that we had to be taught by an auntie or somebody that came before us that had already encountered these things and learned how to do dealings with whoever or whatever. I think what it comes down to is just medicine. I think you guys have heard me use that term before, which is taking away the idea of good and evil when it comes to practitionership, because there's just different ways that you practice, right? So what might be viewed as evil is just their way of doing things. Might not be the common consensus of something that's good, but it's tried and true for them, you know? So it could be practiced.
That's a good point.
But I mean, there are in communities, like any small community, if you say, oh, she's a good witch and she's a bad witch, the bad witch is going to be the one to take it underground and be more quiet because they're the biggest target, the biggest threat, right?
Right.
So you're going to keep those teachings just among your family or your tribe or whoever it may be. But I think, like Morgana was saying about teachings that are passed down or teachings that have been lost, that's very true within the Native American community. And that was strategic. There's reasons why we don't have all the same ceremonies and traditions that we had at one time. That knowledge was, you know, ripped from us and severed. So these larger tribes like the Navajo and everything, maybe they were able to hang on to that more ancient knowledge. Where what I'm working with today in my practitionership, I mean, I even refer to it as mediumship, which is a very modern term that I don't really feel good using, but it's the way that people understand what it is, right? So I feel like a connection is there through just bloodline and all of that, and I have these encounters, but I'm navigating in a very modern world and using very modern practices and very minuscule amounts of those more ancient traditional practices, because I'm from a smaller tribe and our stuff was just wiped out. We don't know, for the most part, you know, the things that we used to. So for those tribes that were able to hang on to some of that ancient knowledge, whether they just zipped their lips or was so far underground already because of the way they practiced that, the people who did practice the skinwalker, who knows how advanced those techniques are. So it might not be anything that's completely magical in a sense. It could just be something that is more finely tuned than what a lot of people have now, but a natural practice that has some kind of results or repercussions.
Right. Well, you know, and I do think too, a lot of times people, they immediately, when you speak about dark and light, they immediately go to good and evil. And I don't look at that way. I look at it as a balance, and pretty much everything is sort of gray. You know,
Yeah.
you can go outside to one direction or the other, but as long as you're not actively harming anyone, it's what works for you.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't feel that dark and light means that you're either a bad witch or a good witch.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I completely agree. I just think it's funny sometimes that, you know, because there are those tropes, you know, like just like I mentioned Darth Vader a minute ago. You know, Darth Vader ended up not being the worst person in the world, but
I never really liked the way they portrayed Darth Vader. He's just a person with Jedi powers who had normal feelings. Poor guy.
well, I think that I mean, it is defense. That short series they did on Obi-Wan really cleared some things up. I don't know if you've seen that. It's worth watching for sure.
I refuse to watch anything that comes on that
Well,
station.
the Obi-Wan short series, it's not like anything's going to be continuing. It's almost like each episode's a full movie, and there's like 4 or 5 episodes, and it clears a lot up.
My hatred for that company outweighs my love for Star Wars.
Well, no, I'm with you. I'm not arguing that point.
Well, okay, and another thing off the Obi-Wan thing, but when I was doing research, something that I came across multiple times that I don't remember as much in the past when I was, researching, is they mentioned gateways. That skinwalkers had the ability to use gateways that were out in the desert and different places and everything.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it was either 3 or 4 that talked about that, the ability. I think one of them was, it's some canyon, let me see, Antelope Canyon out in Arizona. And I think it's on Navajo land. As a matter of fact, from what I was reading, you can't even go there without a guide, a native guide. But that there are doorways that are throughout those canyons and stuff, and that they feel like the skinwalkers can, come and go through those. And that's the reason a lot of people haven't actually seen or anything like that, is because they have that ability.
Well, it's like Kaitlin said a second ago, like maybe it's more of less of a magic thing and more of a evolutionary thing in some fashion or form. Like, just like we talk about, like when we're talking about more advanced civilizations than us,
Mhm.
like maybe they've unlocked a part of themselves that we have yet to discover as a human race.
Right. Or like I said, you've been told all your life that we only use X amount of our brain, so you believe that.
I think we're told that on purpose, like it's
Oh, yeah.
disinformation almost.
I use all amount of my brain.
I hear ya. Hey, Miss Hadley.
Hey, Hallie.
Hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, I hope everything went good today.
Yeah.
I think I've got a form of adult ADD because I've been sitting here playing with Bob Ross. I don't need to put him up.
Yeah, we usually have a whole crew, Kaitlin, like that jumps on Fridays. So you're gonna have to come back on at some point.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that'd be fun. I'd love
Meet
it.
everybody.
Yeah, because Hadley's normally here and would have been here, but she had to have a medical procedure today. So
Aw.
she definitely regrets not being able to meet you and talk with you and everything. So we would love to have you back. As a matter of fact, I can send you our subjects.
Okay.
Yeah,
We have it booked out for the next 10 years.
Yeah, at
Every
least
Friday.
no more than 3. No more than 3.
I don't think for whoever said transdimensional, I honestly do not think that the Naldalusia is transdimensional. That's one of the eerie things that's out there that I believe is on this plane of existence constantly.
You're always enough, Lando. It's great to have you here. But yeah, like I said, I don't know, like I said, so much about transdimensional, but then I'll be the first to admit that I'm open to pretty much anything, because just when I think I've got it figured out, something happens to either myself or someone that I am close to and can, and trust with these type things, that I don't know anything. I'm just completely clueless.
No,
But,
I'm the same way.
mhm.
I can't pretend to know, or none of us do, and I don't think we're supposed to, but we can share, our experiences and our thoughts and
Absolutely.
ideas.
now
Absolutely.
the knowledge of how to transition into these things came from like a different plane, kind of like the Aztecian records that you guys were going on
Akashic
about. Yeah, the
or
that you guys
Akashic.
Akashic records you all were going on about that one episode.
Mhm.
I guess it was about that.
That's a good point. I mean, it could be that some higher level of being handed down this information.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a good point, because to be honest, like when I was reading about the initiation process, especially the one where you have to consume somebody, that's like dead on Wendigo as well.
I wonder
Like-
if when you do that you can use barbecue sauce, some Sweet Baby Ray's or something.
I don't think, I'm that person. I remember that movie where the people had the plane crash in the snow-covered mountains, and
They didn't have any seasonings.
but my thing is, I like to think, and I like I said, I've never been in this position, so I can't say this definitively, but I'd like to think I had trekked so far down the mountain that Tully was too far away to eat.
Mm,
That's just my thought.
you gotta pack something to go. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. And that's really the difference. So with skinwalkers, the transformation is around
Is that really though? Is that really
consuming
the way
somebody that you care about.
Right. I did read that too, that,
And-
it's got to be like a close family member or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that one, like there's tons of different ways out there that you can read about, but that one kind of strikes me as probably the most serious of all of them, just
Yeah,
because you have to kill somebody.
Well,
Right.
you know, is that like a set in stone path to this? Because I just thought that it was like the ability of like somebody that's considered a bad witch that just has the ability of possession, essentially.
Well, I think what it's getting at is that the power has to be generated in some way.
Mm.
And either that's through, these kind of dark arts things, or there's more simpler ways. Like I said in the beginning, they, in some of the stories, just gather powerful items together to be able to generate the power.
Mhm.
Well, I think what I would like to add to this is I don't want to overshare. It's very personal and it's very meaningful. And I think it's overlooked a lot because people don't understand practitionership.
Yeah.
They think of, when they think of modern day witches, spells, or, whatever it may be. But practitioners work directly with whatever's there. And not everyone is looking towards the good or, the more of light spirits. So even for myself, if I'm doing anything, whether I'm doing a cleansing, trying to remove a negative attachment from somebody, or whether I'm trying to protect myself in some way or facilitate whatever it may be, I'm not pulling things out of thin air and I'm not looking them up. I'm following instruction, whatever they're telling me to do to facilitate that. So I would imagine for a practitioner who is also a skinwalker, it's probably different for everybody. There might be a commonly accepted way or a way that whoever is providing that power, like you were saying, to the skinwalker in that initiation, is probably telling them exactly what they need to do to facilitate that.
So it really could be almost like a possessive situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like not exactly the same, but if you have some sort of entity communicating from a different realm, like that's very similar.
Yeah.
Or even influencing.
Yeah, or a trade-off kind of thing. Like you can live this way and have these powers or gifts, but
did somebody just say Cecil likes ranch?
No, that was several different comments.
I was just saying out loud. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, and it's and just is with me personally when I know someone that's starting on a path that is not traditional, and they ask or they're talking about the fact that, oh well, this say crystal is for this and this one's for that. Well, that's the known and common way that it is perceived, but I may not use it that way. It may not speak to me that way.
Yeah.
So you have to, you can read every book in the world, but at the end of it, you throw that book away and go by what feels right for you and everything. So I think that in a lot of ways, it could easily be something like that. If you want something bad enough, you can manifest it, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
Sadly, I think a lot of these old stories like this have been relegated to either hoax or just, oh, well, it's just a legend, it's not real. But those stories originated from somewhere. There's something. You just didn't make this up in your head one day sitting around the campfire. I feel that anything that is considered a legend, that there is some truth in it, and that is the reason that it has been carried forward. for generations.
I think the scariest thing for me about them, like just all this lore, is like probably the scariest one that I came across was that they hang out around graveyards because they like to dig up bones and turn them into dust so that they can use it for spells and to poison people. Like to I guess I always think of like the movies that you see or shows where they just like blow something in your face and then you're done. Like you're just done.
Yeah, like a spiritual poisoning.
Yeah.
That's the same reason Native people teach their kids, you never take something from another Native person. If somebody handed me a gift, here, Kaitlin, and I don't know them, I'm not taking it. Because the medicine that they're putting in that, I don't know what it is. And a true skinwalker is not going to approach you in skinwalker form. They're going to look like me.
Right. They had a series based on I forget the writer's name, but it was based on Native American on the reservation. The guy was a police officer on the reservation, and I remember this one person was they thought causing problems for other people, and his deputy was Native, and she's like she tried to take my hair, and I made sure she didn't touch me. If she was trying to take my hair for a reason. That's not something a person just does. And that really struck close to me because I'm the same way. I have my bubble. If I don't know you, stay out of that bubble.
Yeah.
I don't want anything that you're going to give me. Yes, Hadley, it was Dark Skies. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Like I said, some
Mike.
of the stories. Yeah,
I saw that episode. I saw Dark Skies, and as far as Skinwalker and the practitioners of that sort, that was the realist interpretation that I've seen. So that's how I understand it, and that's how I navigate those situations. Because it's not a superstition we have. We've seen the repercussions of not putting up those protections.
Right.
That's why we're still practicing that today to protect ourselves, because we've seen the reality already and we don't want to again, right?
Yes. Yes, that makes complete sense.
That looks like it has to be Mike. It doesn't say his name.
Right. Yeah, like I said, this Facebook user thing is crazy.
But Mike, so I guess with your question, like the difference between skinwalkers and Wendigo, if you're just looking for like a physical difference, skinwalkers in the lore are depicted as like black dogs, like just giant wolves.
Usually coyotes, right?
Well,
it can be really anything.
Yeah, it depends on what you're reading, really. But Wendigo's pretty pigeonholed. Like Wendigo is supposed to be almost like a deer skull or like a stag skull with these huge antlers and almost like a humanoid body. Massive. They're supposed to be massive.
Very skeletal too, from what I remember.
Yep.
Yep.
But the main difference in the lore is Skinwalker, allegedly you have to consume someone that you love, and with Wendigo you're consuming someone out of disparity, like you're starving to death.
The current owner of the Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, because I think I remember Carrie mentioned too that something about them placing blame on Mormons in the area.
That was not Skinwalker Ranch, but the adjacent ranch.
Okay.
The
all right.
Blonde frog.
Okay. All right. Because like I said,
which that could have bled over. I haven't seen anything recent on Skinwalker Ranch.
Right. Well, like I said, again, it's because it's become so popular again, but it's popular not necessarily in a positive or good way. It's more of you know, because some of the videos I've been sent, it's just like, okay, people, we're not this stupid. You know, you can tell this is somebody with, you know, a bear fur over his head walking, you know, past. I mean, so.
Sounds like me on Saturday night.
Oh, there you go.
Well, when it really hits home when Kaitlin was like, you know, in their culture that they won't accept things from strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Like that really, like to me, is like a huge difference.
Yeah.
Just a whole different school of thought, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Kind of like a, you know, wolf in sheep's clothing type of situation.
Exactly, because like I said, a skinwalker is not going to approach you with his fangs out. It's going to approach you like me. Hey, Tully, here.
Yeah.
Have a-
Well, I would be up the
Depends on my
creek because if you
intention,
tried to
right?
hand me something, I would definitely take it.
Speaking of that, check your mail tomorrow.
And that's good, you know, because there's good or bad medicine on that. But if you don't know their intention, or even if you do and you know that person doesn't care for you, why are you going to take their bad medicine? You know, because that's their powder, their ground up bone powder, right?
Yeah.
That's a good
Spiritual
point,
illness.
Hadley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I can't say that. I pretty much don't go into people's houses that I don't like. I'm more apt to go in someone's I don't know real well, but if I don't like you, it's for usually a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to trust you not to poison me you know, when you
Always
serve
gotta-
dinner.
Whenever I go to a new house, I try to act as awkward as possible.
Mhm.
Like if somebody says hello to me, I go, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I tend to, if it's someone I don't know well, I'm usually very quiet and reserved because I'm listening and feeling, you know, how do I feel in this space? You know, I mean, because like I said, energy's everywhere. And if you pay attention, you know, you're going to usually pick that up. That, or if my dogs don't like you, then just go away. You're never standing a chance. I trust them.
I think
Have you
most of
ever
us
had-
are safe because we're all paranoid by nature.
Yeah, true.
So, Kaitlin, have you ever had to investigate somewhere that had like super bad energy like this?
Not investigate, but I've had to pray for people and remove attachments that were of this nature. I refer to that as bad medicine. But sometimes those can be from skinwalkers, you know, the intelligent intent to harm somebody that way. Those are, I think, some of the most dangerous things that I do. And I have seen things like you guys explained, roaming around different Native communities, but I haven't seen them as well, right?
Right.
If it's not there for you, you just leave it alone. But if it comes after you or your family, you have to intervene because it's not something that's going away.
Right. It's like once it catches you catch its attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had to cleanse myself as well from being spiritually attacked by things like that somebody would call a skinwalker.
That
Just
kind of
traveling through
negative.
their territory or buying a gift from being gifted something from somebody that I love, but from somebody, you know, from there. Could have just been their energy on it or recognition, like I mentioned earlier.
Oh.
Yeah, it's something that it's not a common occurrence, but probably 2 or 3 times in my life.
Mm-hmm. I have a friend, and anytime she orders jewelry or crystals or anything that's possible, when she gets it home, she buries it, you know, in the earth, you know, and she lets it sit there for a couple of days. And that's her reasoning is it's going to absorb all of the negativity that between whoever made it, you know, who shipped it, where it came from, you know, because you just don't know who has touched it. You
That's
know,
interesting.
yeah. And
That's
I
correct.
always thought it was very interesting too, because it's just, I had never met anyone that does that before. And like I said, you know, if I send her something, she won't do it because, you know, but like I said, anything that, say if she went on Amazon and found something she liked, it's going in the ground. And but she's probably one of the least ill people I've ever met in my life too. So,
Yeah.
That's that's kind of smart because I mean, like, especially if you buy jewelry, like used jewels or jewelry, because you never know, like, who owned it, what kind of spirit they was, what kind of nature they had about them, and things of that nature. So, it's actually pretty smart if it actually cleanses it.
Yeah.
Mm.
She has a very specific place. It's the same place every time, and she gets out there and cleanses and everything. She usually puts salt out a couple of times a month, to let that absorb in and everything. And that's her spot. And, nothing else goes there. She doesn't have, personal things around it. It's just a spot out on the edge of the woods where she goes and buries stuff.
I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, but from what I was reading, the things that use this medicine that Kaitlin is talking about, from what I was reading, for the most part, like if they're full blown, they're almost biologically immortal.
Hmm.
Like this magic will literally keep them alive. And from what I read, the only thing to remedy this situation is, I think it's white ash dust or like ashes. And it has to be, I'm not sure if it has to be like a ceremonial knife or what, but apparently whatever you're trying to end these things with, you have to have it. It has to be blessed, and it has to be stricken in a certain area of the body as well.
The thought of immortality scares me. Like, would you want to be immortal? Like, that seems like just such a anti-human thing. Like, I don't know.
Well, I think about, so the whole significance of having to consume someone that you love is to get rid of any humanity that you have left. Like to signify that anyway. But if you think about like if you're in that darkness for years and years and years and years, 50 years. Think about what 50 years in that darkness would do to you.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear my dogs right now?
Uh-huh.
They're barking like crazy. I'll go on mute for a second until they stop.
He's 7 feet tall. He's 7 feet tall. Of course we can hear him.
Look, if we don't have dog barking in one of our shows, then something isn't right. That's just part of it. So, yes, Hadley, that is definitely a good point. People who want it are the ones who don't want to have it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
I like to go for about 200.
Well, and that's another thing. Oh, yeah, Canada can't hear my dog. Well, usually they have company downstairs, and they're down there alone right now.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
well, so in the old stories, humans used to live until 600 to 800 years old.
Right.
So maybe there's something in our subconscious that just yearns for those days. 100 years old would be like infancy compared to that.
I know this is going off the rails, but have I said before if I had the ability to time travel, I'd use it to go grocery shopping?
What?
That's just a random thought I've been having. If I could time travel, I would seriously just use it to go grocery shopping, I think. Maybe get some gas.
No, I would just want to see how much history is really rewritten.
Yeah, go back to 1850 and see what the world was really like.
I've already read about it, and I believe Tartaria. So,
well, like I said, there's a lot of it I believe too, but I would like to have definitive proof. I would like to, for my own benefit, to be able to say, yeah, well, I saw that, so I know it's true. Then I'd come back and tell you, hey, guess what I saw?
Well, I mean, if we were lied to about history pre-1900, I would go as far as to also say that all of the Native American culture that we know about, they were a lot more established and a lot more dominant than what we were led to believe in our books growing up.
Well, they were for sure. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, I'm talking like, well, you've seen the architecture that's been
Yeah.
hidden from mainstream. Like it wasn't just, history books tend to depict Native American ancient culture as like simple, and
Yeah.
I don't think that it's simple at all. Like I think they had, very unique and awesome architecture and culture and civilization that was
But
prevalent.
even my little tribe below Lake Tahoe, they've always said we're just nomadic. We just moved in there and we just moved from here to there.
Mm-hmm.
They were building a freeway overpass probably about 22 years ago now. And someone, just a good Samaritan, I guess, wrote to our tribe saying, hey, we came across a village underground, like a full civilization. They had dolls, pottery, all these things that they said we were more primitive, right, in our area, but things that were more advanced. They built a freeway over it.
Now this might blow your mind.
Yeah, we didn't have time to study it, nothing.
This might
That's
blow your
something
mind.
that
Where
we
they're
They
saying
did that
saw
on purpose.
where they're
Yeah.
saying that's underground, there's a very solid chance that didn't used to be underground too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so the more we study about, especially like in the Americas, history prior to 1900, which like we're all into conspiracies and stuff, but like there's evidence all over America and all over the world of a great flood that happened. They call it the mud flood in the 1800s, or like circa 1800, or maybe the late 1700s. And it's very possible that all of this rich culture, like that we seen in the early World's Fairs, was Native American.
Yeah.
And like some of this architecture is just absolutely beautiful. So it doesn't surprise me that they found it underground, because if things were covered in mud, that would turn into just desert over time.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for coming by. You have a good night
Thanks.
too.
I can't see who that was. But
Yeah, me either.
Thank you.
But and that's another thing too, though. Like Hadley said, power. Why did people go out of their way to eradicate Native American culture, the languages, the people, unless there was something they didn't want you to know?
Well, like I always like to say, there's a reason why the U.S. government mowed down a bunch of women and children doing the ghost dance.
Mm-hmm.
They're spiritual. They were dancing till they died because of
Right.
their spirituality. I think it's always been something that was feared because there is power in that. It's a real connection, or the knowledge, or whatever it was.
Right.
We obviously didn't know how to use it in a way that could benefit us at the time. But it's
I think
a power they didn't want people to have. It's hard to control people if they can see with their own eyes.
Exactly.
If you think about it, everything from like the exterminations to modern day chemicals that they use in the food and water, it's all meant to keep us docile and on a lower vibrational existence. So I guarantee they were scared of the knowledge and culture that existed. They can't control it.
Even to the point of sterilization. As early as the 70s. It wasn't 200 years ago. It was 60 years ago.
I have family members that are still living that had that done to them.
Right. And, I can remember the first time, reading about that, because, I grew up in Mississippi, and there are certain things we were not taught in school. I never knew until I got to college that we had Japanese internment camps. I never knew that about the sterilization or anything. Those were things I found on my own or in college, and it's just like, why would you try to do that to a civilization unless there are things you did not want to continue? Why did you not want their knowledge and everything to go forward? Because obviously you couldn't control it, and that scared you.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's crazy. Well, that's good to know.
That is good to know.
That's good to know for sure.
But yeah, so like I said, I always thought about that, and I remember, like I said, it has been many years since I did learn that. But on Dark Skies, that was one of the things when that came back to. I was like, oh wow, yeah, I remember that. That's horrendous. That one culture would do that to another culture.
Yeah.
I mean, it just terrible. But like I said, but I do think it has a lot to do with that knowledge and everything, and trying to keep that from becoming known and more mainstream and everything. Because where would we be now if all of that knowledge had come forward to where we're at now?
I think we've come full circle. Like they want you to think that you're, just a basic person using 1% of their brain on a rock flying through space at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Right, exactly. But, and I think that if you have a certain mindset, or you have accessed a little bit more of that brain, then you tend to learn more things, that you tend to realize the truths to a lot of things that, people would have you think were imaginary or unreal, or you're just, that we don't talk about those things because, you're crazy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so like I said, and I think that it's a lot of the radicalization that we have now is because people are starting to be more open to learning.
Yeah, I think collective consciousness is starting to wake up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to see. I know Hadley said she's going to jump on it after the show ends, but
Mm-hmm.
we have a few minutes left. Kaitlin, what do you have going on coming up?
Right now, I'm just doing readings over Zoom. I got my little holiday specials going on, like 50% off. So this year has been really the year of just spiritual cleansings more than anything. And I don't know if that's because everybody is struggling or what it is, but I'm focusing on that in this upcoming year as well. So I'm not really doing the paranormal guided things anymore, just the mediumship side and the healing side, just prayer and things for people who are going through something.
Totally does have to get me a Christmas present. So
hint, hint.
So do you feel like that this has been a more rewarding year then? Like just in what the things that you've done?
It really has. I mean, I made the conscious decision this year to not do like the paranormal adventure style things. I like doing that because personally, that's where I hone my mediumship even more in the communication aspect of things. And it's, fun for me to use the equipment and things, but there's nothing more rewarding than helping people with something that, for one, most of them don't believe is going to be beneficial to them at all. Going in, a lot of people think it's just going to be for fun, and they leave with, either comfort or whatever it may be, or like a fun experience, or just something that they can't question, really.
Right.
And I think that's what it's about. It's just getting people back to realizing their own power, like we're talking about. It's the free thinkers of the world that are the biggest threat. If you're a free thinker and you don't just buy into what everybody says, you rely on your own experiences and your own senses. And once you start doing that, you really realize your power as an individual person.
Yes.
And that's what
Completely agree.
The mainstream society fears the most.
I will say that it was super cool to talk to you the time that you were on site. I think whatever we were
club, I think.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was fun.
I got screwed out of that adventure.
Oh, well, I mean, it's been wonderful having you on tonight. And I was on your site last night, and just, one day I'm just going to have to say, okay, I have questions.
Anytime.
Yes. So, and we would definitely love to have you back. And like I said, I will definitely send you a list. So anytime you want to come back, we'd love to have you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I've had a blast.
Oh, I think Hadley wanted to say hello after you end the live.
Yes. All right. Well, guys, I think we're going to go ahead and call it a close. And, I think tonight's been great.
It
Like I
is.
said, we stayed on subject mostly, which is very
Is next
unusual.
week? Is next week the week?
The week? Yes, yes,
What's
it
Okay.
is. Thanks,
What's
Linda.
happening next week?
Next week we are talking to all of the fans and seeing what everybody wants to listen to next year.
Oh, groovy.
Yep, and kind of touching on some of the things that we will be talking about next year. So, so yeah, that's gonna be fun. You know, to get that input and everything. So, all right, guys, thanks so much for coming by to see us. Look forward to seeing you next week. And until next time, stay weird.